Hey everyone, we are live. Yep, and hold on, sorry, losing my hair. I sit on this inflatable ball, as you guys know, because I fell off of it one time, so
Yeah, yeah.
almost
Shay,
collapsed again right now.
we have a blooper reel, and the blooper reel is of Ack sitting on this ball and falling down. It
Yeah,
was
Just moved
literally,
over and over again.
yes, it deflated on me. It's crazy. All right. We have yeah. Let's just start the show, Mike, and then introduce our guests. All right, so
okay.
you and I will start, and Shane will just you hold off, and I'll introduce you.
Okay.
All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday. Yeah, it is Tuesday, right? Sorry. Man,
Yes.
oh man, oh man. Sorry. It's
You
been.
got that right. Now let's see.
I feel like I've lived a week today already. Sorry. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, May 22nd, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time in the afternoon to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today we are joined by HockeyBuzz blogger Sheng Peng. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Absolutely great. And your story is like it's almost to me as interesting as like the Vegas Knights themselves. But is because it's funny. Like I first met you, and you reached out to us about there was a team coming to Vegas, and I get an email from Eric, our CFO, and he's like, yeah, there's a guy who has some experience. He wants to cover the Knights. Now, were you living in LA at the time?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was covering the Kings.
Right, you were covering the Kings, and so you said you were thinking of moving to Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, sure. It's, we saw some of your stuff. It looks great. And it's just so funny because, it's an expansion team. I'm thinking, we've had Arizona writers and we've had such, and nothing really big happens. And it's a tough marketplace sometimes because, a lot of fans following it and everything like that. And then, and yet out of nowhere, here you are the other day. And I texted you because I was just laughing because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, it's just as crazy thinking about Sheng, who's covering the Kings, moves to Vegas, covering the Knights for us, and now here I am watching CBC, and you're asking a question to it, in the press conference, and I'm like, this is just what a year. I mean, what's this experience been like for you? I mean, first off,
It's been amazing. Just to begin with, when I first moved here, my lease was till April, and I said, yeah. I told my landlord, yeah, I'm going to be here till April. I'm not going to be here past that.
right.
And so every round since then has been a scramble of, I think I'm going to add another month. I think I'm going to add another month.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And now they're taking you into June, of course.
Right, now they're taking me into June, and so that part of it has been surprising, of course, but it's just been a whirlwind experience. I mean, just from the beginning. Hate to bring this as part of it, but it is a part of it. The tragedy on October 1st.
Of course, yeah.
I actually was in the building at T-Mobile Arena as it was happening. I was doing some work, and it was being locked down. The building was being locked down as I was working, and I was locked down there till 4 a.m. with the workers.
Wow.
And then they go on an 8-1 start and everybody's like, this can't continue.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it does all the way into the playoffs.
I mean, there aren't, how many beat writers are there out there for this team? Really, like legitimate beat writers?
Let's see. There's a couple of newspaper guys for the Review Journal. There's one for the Las Vegas Sun. Sinbin.Vegas guys, they're there all the time. Angel.com.
Right.
But yeah, and then there's a handful of guys who are there pretty regularly too, other sites, but there's not a lot of them though. It's certainly not like Toronto.
I mean, I'm guessing in the beginning of October there were a lot of people because it was new and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess would have been by like the middle of December you would have 3 or 4 people. Like like that's like because I've been to, it's interesting, like you say, Toronto or even Philadelphia where I am. But then we have one of our writers, Bill, lives part-time in Dallas, part-time in Philly. Mm-hmm. He covers Dallas, and he says it's incredible. He goes to Dallas and there's 3 people in there, like
right.
Like and even San Jose, you go to San Jose, there's only a couple people in the press box. And yet I'm sure, and I would have expected that to fade as the year went on, but I guess it's increased. But when I mean, it's such a hard question to answer, but when did you actually get a sense that there was something different about this team, like besides just the fast start excitement? When was the point where you're like, okay, something's going on?
It was during, I think they had a 12-game stretch around Christmas where they think they went 11-0-1 and something
Yeah.
like that. They beat Tampa Bay, Washington, Pittsburgh at home. And at that point, if you guys have seen my articles, I do a lot of analytics. At that point, the math just told me, well, they can't miss the playoffs. I mean,
right at that point,
I mean, they could go 500 the rest of the way and they're making the playoffs. And so at that point, I just had to kind of relent and recognize that, wow, this team is good. And I keep watching them, and they had a 20-game lull at the end of the season, which they didn't play as well, even though they kept winning games.
Sure.
And so going to the playoffs, it sort of was a choice of what team was real, the team we saw in the first 60 games of the season before the trade deadline, or a team after the trade deadline that wasn't quite as good in terms of the analytics. Yeah. And I believe that the team I saw for most of the season was the real one, and it's shown so far in the playoffs.
Well, Shane, let me ask, because I'm struggling to remember. I think it was November when you were in Toronto and we had lunch together.
Yeah,
we were talking
Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, talking about the team, and at that point they were in the middle of that stretch where they were using 5 goaltenders.
Right,
I mean,
right.
That was the thing that struck me as being the most surreal, because it wasn't just Marc-Andre Fleury standing on his head, which everybody would expect, because since he's a great goaltender, but Malcolm Subban, then Oscar Dansk, then Maxim Lagacé. I mean, it was just whoever you put in net, and I cannot remember the 5th goaltender, the young kid,
Dylan Ferguson, played one period.
Yeah, so it's like, so you had 5 goaltenders, and every time anybody was in net, they played at least good and sometimes great.
Yeah, that's a stretch that the players look to. David Prawn has said that that's, for him at least, that's a stretch when he knew that the team was good because they just kept winning. And looking back at the homestand where they went 8-1, I guess they did kind of set the seeds for that, because of course the first game in Dallas they won, but Fleury had to save 44 shots. And after the game, we all were like, "Oh, yep, that's the way the season's going to go. That's not the formula for success." But then, if you look at the games in the 8-1 homestand, they beat Colorado 7-0. They beat Chicago. I don't remember the score, but they beat them very definitively. Most of the games that they won with conviction, and that sort of gave you an idea of, wow, this team isn't that bad, and then actually it's good. And of course, then they go to that stretch in the East where they start losing all those goalies, and they keep winning. And
that's the amazing thing to me. Like, and the goalie thing is just fascinating, because as a goalie myself, I had a theory, and I was trying to come up with theories. Like, what is it that how can all these goalies be? It can't just be coincidence that they're all playing well, and it's not, and that they're all doing. And my theory is that the mental aspect of goaltending, which is like probably best epitomized by Marc-Andre Fleury, is that when goalies love being underdogs in their heads, because there's nothing really to lose. You go in there, you go play a game, and no one expects you to win. If you get beaten, you get beaten. But like when Fleury was with the Penguins, for example, like I remember the Penguins Flyers epic series that the Flyers won in 7, when Fleury was the goalie and getting shelled. There was so much pressure on him. It was just constantly like, we're going to score goals. Why can't you stop goals? Because but it seems like when you put a young goalie like even like a Malcolm Subban or anybody like that in there, and the pressure's off, you even see it in things like Belarus or tournaments, in the worlds, like where you see world championship tournaments. These goalies play well because they've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also another aspect is that the Vegas team defense is actually pretty good. Yeah. And so we see that statistically, and we saw that in the Winnipeg series, how they were able to shut down Winnipeg in the third period. When they needed to, they were able to shut down San Jose in the third period of that game 6. They were able to shut down LA, and so that's a big factor too.
Now, Shane, the thing is, and I don't think it's revisionist history because it's happening right now. But people are saying like everything has gone right for Vegas. Well, not really, because if you remember, and we'll talk about 2 things here. Early in the year, they decided to pick up Malcolm Subban off of waivers from Boston, and then they traded Calvin Pickard to the Leafs for a 6th-round pick and Tobias Lindbergh. And almost immediately after that, that's when the goalies started dropping. And Pickard was healthy while all these guys. Now they were able to get through that, and that was fine. But most teams that don't have the stars aligned, that would have probably killed any chance of them making the postseason.
Right.
The other thing was, and we've talked about this on this show, and we talked about it a lot when it was going on, was the Shipachyov situation.
Yeah.
I mean, he was expected to be a big piece, and I mean, I think the advantage is that they had a ton of cap room to play with, and him going back to the KHL, and them, I can't even remember how much it's like minuscule that they're eating in terms of a cap hit. I mean, they got out of that situation, whereas most teams probably wouldn't have been able to. So they dodged a couple bullets there.
Yeah, for sure. And it was actually hilarious when they claimed Subban and Pickard was still on the roster, and McPhee had a press conference, not just about that, but that was one of the topics. Right. And McPhee said clearly, like, yeah, we're not actually sure if Subban is ready. And 2 days later, they trade Pickard to Toronto. So what's the signal that you're sending to us? But he was ready enough, though, of course. And then, of course, with Shipachyov, I mean, if you think about it, if you think about what this team should have been, what it was on paper, Shipachyov was supposed to be the team's #1 center.
Right.
When he wasn't ready or whatever was going on with him, Cody Eakin started off the season as the team's #1 center.
Right.
And so, I mean, of course, not everything has aligned, but a lot of it has aligned, though. Because all of a sudden, if you look at a team now, you have prototypical #1 center William Karlsson, two-way player, 40-goal scorer. Erik Haula is an excellent second-line center. Cody Eakin has slid back to the position that he should be, which is puck-pursuing third-line center. And Belmar, as good a fourth-line center as you find in the league. So
Belmar, I got to know really well here, and is such a class guy, such a good character guy, and really disappointed when they let him go, when they didn't protect him. I got the sense that they weren't going to, because he was going to maybe be a little bit more expensive than what they thought he was for them. But at the same time, I knew when he went there, I said that I actually said to somebody, that's going to be their captain. At the time, that's what I thought, because that's just the way he was as a player. And also just seeing everything he did at, in the World Cup of Hockey for Team Europe and everything. He was always this leader. And I did mention the other day that I talked to a player about the Shipachyov situation, one of the players off the record from your team out there. He said that the way that went down really was amazing from the inside, because it showed them all that how important the whole team concept was, and how the team they weren't going to put even this one guy that they went out there and made their big star signing. He wasn't going to be above it. So they just the rule was laid down, and that's how it was going to be. It was going to be
McPhee has mentioned that too, as it was sort of a defining moment for the team. And like you said, it showed that the team came above the individual.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing I wanted to ask you, because it's from more like a little inside baseballish thing, is you covered the LA Kings, and the Kings are a group of players. A lot of them have been around for a long time. A lot of them with a lot of expectations, making a lot of money, winning Stanley Cups. A lot of star power there. So talking to Jeff Carter can be like talking to a door. But I've dealt with him my whole life. Now it feels like. And then you go to a group of players that have all already been sort of humbled by being not protected by their team.
Right.
It must have been a fascinating. The locker room shift must have been incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about it, like, nobody in Vegas makes more than, I think, $6 million per.
Right.
Whereas with the Kings, there's a bunch of guys above that or around there. And it definitely was kind of a seismic shift that way, for sure.
Were they really nice to report? Were they really nice to deal with as far as reporters go, this team?
Yeah. They have been. Yeah, there hasn't been any significant kind of issues. There's little things here and there. You ask the wrong question, they don't like it. But then sometimes you just talk to the players, or you talk to the staff, and it's been pretty smooth sailing overall. So
now, again, it's tough to criticize George McPhee. He's going to win GM of the year. If he doesn't, it's a crime. But I know that at the deadline, there were a lot of people that were scratching their heads at the deal, especially now in retrospect. If you look at Tatar not being a regular in the postseason, giving up a 1, a 2, and a 3 for Thomas Tatar. What was the justification of that deal? Because it really seemed to go counter to what they had this group. The group was there. They weren't against adding players on, but all of a sudden you give up 3 draft picks for a guy who's under contract for another couple of years, and he's a good player. But it just seemed to be an outlier.
Sure. Well, Tatar might be insurance first for Perron and Neal, who are free agents. Right. But I think the main idea this year, though, is, okay, so if you look at the team, you have one of the best first lines in hockey, Marchessault, Carlson, and Smith. Yep. You have a really good second line with Neal, Haula, and Perron. Mm-hmm. And you look at your third line, though, you have Eakin, Tuck, and then at the time they had Leipzig.
Right.
And Leipzig wasn't producing at the level that they were hoping for, and he wasn't providing other aspects of the game.
Right.
And so I think in theory, Tatar was supposed to slide into that third line spot. And imagine a third line, in theory, of Alex Tuck and a 4-time 20-goal scorer like Thomas Tatar. That sounds like a pretty good third line.
Yeah.
And it hasn't quite worked out, but you can see what George was thinking there, at least. With Reeves, they got a 4th-round draft pick to take him on and take on some of Broussard's salary. And he also offered a little bit of kind of a physicality, that sort of play that they didn't have so much of. McPhee talked about adding 1, 2, 3% to the team with a guy like Reeves, and I think that's what Reeves has done. And so I think that explains a lot of that. And also McPhee has said that at the time there were a lot of injuries too.
Right.
And so it turned out that you needed Reeves to play every night down the stretch, or you would have had to call somebody up from the minors.
Now, we're going to get into the present when it comes to the Golden Knights in the next week or so when the Stanley Cup final starts. And we've covered the Fleury story and all the stories. What I'm sort of interested in is what's going to happen after, because at the deadline there were a lot of rumors of them trying to make a deal for Erik Karlsson. Mm-hmm. There has been the name of John Tavares that has sort of dropped in there, and this management team has been very sharp and made a lot of really right moves, but they have a lot of cap space to play with, and there's players like you said, like Neal and Perron, and I think Jason Garrison's contract is dropping off, where they're going to have even more room to play with. What do you sense the direction of this organization is in terms of the next step?
I would think that they would revisit the talks for Erik Karlsson. They were hot and heavy on him during the trade deadline, and they were willing to give up a lot for him. And I would think that they may not have to give up so much over the summer because they won't get that second year from him.
Right.
And if you look at their team, and it was a weakness that people thought was going to be exposed in the playoffs. But if you look at the team, the one area still is you look at the defense, and it's effective but no name defense.
Yeah.
And so having a guy like Erik Karlsson eat up half the game would help you. And so I would think that's one that they would go back to. Tavares, I've heard, and obviously he's a great player, great team player. But it's hard to say. It sounds very arrogant, but I don't know if the Golden Knights need John Tavares.
I mean, honestly, I'll tell you that I feel that way with both of them, and I don't think it's arrogant. And the reason being is, Erik Karlsson, when you talk around the league, the issue that everyone says, oh, he's a great defenseman, but everybody says, but he has to have the puck all the time. And he if you look at the way he plays with Ottawa, he carries the puck up, probably 50% of the time. And as a stats guy, how often he's got the puck. He's a guy who has to have the puck. Where your team in Vegas, they're so good at the quick passes and not carrying the puck. Like they let the puck do the work for them more than they carry the puck up the ice. So I wonder how Karlsson would fit into that situation like that. Well, I was glad that they didn't get him because at the trade deadline at least. I mean, you could start another year and you could work it through, but with everything going the way it was going, I thought it was very smart to get Tatar and Reeves because it showed. It was almost like we didn't expect to be trading 4 assets at this time of year. This is when they thought they'd be trading away. But what we have is we're actually a playoff team. We've got to play this like a playoff team. So we're going to go out and get the scorer and get some strength and see what happens.
Well, that's where I'm curious Shank, because I mean, obviously there's going to be a different mentality on the part of the ownership and management of this team if they win the Stanley Cup as opposed to if they don't. Because if they do, maybe they'll just say, okay, we'll just continue on. We'll build with our prospects. We've hit the home run. We've done in 1 year. Whereas if they fall short, maybe Bill Foley says, okay, we'll spend the money on Tavares or we'll make the deal for Karlsson. I mean, do you think that maybe plays into the decision-making process of McPhee after the final?
I'm not sure. I suppose it's possible. He does keep talking about this as this. Yesterday he said this is a Cinderella story. We hope it continues. Or fairy tale. I'm sorry. He called it a fairy tale story. And he does seem to be somebody who is still kind of waiting to see if it's all going to turn to dust. And you know what? That's his job. That's his job.
And you also remember worked for the Capitals for a long time, Shang.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's used to that happening.
That would be the ultimate revenge for George McPhee for them to play the Capital.
Oh, yeah. That story is there to be written, and no question about it.
Shang, when did the Golden Misfits nickname come up? Because and maybe I'm just in a not being aware, but I heard it for the first time when Ryan Reeves said it at the end of the series.
I believe it came from I guess a text chain that James Neal had started with the teammates, and I think the wives and girlfriends got a hold of it, and they started making these T-shirts. That's what I understand the story is.
Okay.
So but now everybody's running with it.
Yeah, we were all calling them the Island of Misfit Toys in the beginning of the year. That was the obvious connection there. That's what they were. And in my 30 wacky predictions,
the Island of Dr. McPhee.
There you go. In the beginning of the year, like in my 30 wacky predictions, I try to think of the weirdest things that could possibly happen that won't happen, but the weirdest things that possibly could. And one of them was that the Knights would be in first place come Thanksgiving.
Yeah, when we thought he was high.
I thought that was the craziest thing that could possibly happen is that the Knights would get off to this hot start and be in first place come Thanksgiving. And it's just now there is going to be, of course, and it's hard to say this yet because you still have a series to go, but it's going to change next year for this team, because the pressure is going to be there now all of a sudden.
Right.
And now will that happen in a city like Vegas though? Someone told me they don't think it will. They think they'll just continue like in another city once you win a Stanley Cup. And they even saw it in a city like Carolina. Like the pressure is just totally different.
Right. I mean, a lot of things did go right this year. I think half the team has had a career season, so we had to be cognizant of that, and that probably won't happen next season. They're not. William Karlsson is probably not going to score 50 goals next season.
Yeah.
Mark Chosen's going to score 100 points.
Right.
Maybe they will. They're great players. But anyway, so there's going to be some kind of backslide, but I don't think it's going to be so great. I mean, the point, the simple matter of fact is that the team is good. They play well together, and that there's every reason to believe that will continue.
Yeah. Now, William Karlsson is on the last year of, and it's not his entry level. I think he signed a bridge deal. He's making $1 million. He's obviously at 43 goal season. He hasn't dropped off in the playoffs. What is the talk? Because obviously this guy has been their leading scorer. I think he scored 6 goals last year with Columbus, and now he jumps to 43. So there's not a lot to the resume, but you can't deny the season that he had. What's the talk there? Is it another bridge deal or is it a long-term deal? And any sense of what's going on there?
I would think that Vegas wants to ink a long-term deal with him. He's been so good this year, and you can get him at a discount if you believe that he is a first-line center because he has no resume before this. So it's a time for them to take advantage of that. So I would think that that's what they're trying to do, but we'll have to see. And I do know that Karlsson loves playing with Marchessault and Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to help. I believe Karlsson does attribute a lot of his success to those guys. So
and Smith is under contract for another 4 years.
Smith is under contract for 4 years, and Marchessault just signed his extension.
Right. Now the other contract that they've got some time here, but Nate Schmidt, who I think has been their best defenseman, he enters the final year of his contract on July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
He's eligible for an extension. You've got Garrison, Spiza, and Stoner dropping off, so it would make a lot of sense to probably extend him as well.
Yeah, I would think so. He is their number 1 defenseman this year, and he's lived up to it. It's if you think about it, just think about just how no-name this defense is, and they're going to the Stanley Cup final. Like before before the season, none of them were top 4 defensemen on their teams pretty much. I mean, you think with Theodore,
and it's crazy thing is all the players they got for so that they wouldn't take other defensemen. Like that was the other thing that it seemed like they were getting players because teams were protecting.
Yeah. Minnesota wanted to protect Dumba, so they sent over Howell and Tuck. Islanders wanted to send over DeHaan, so they sent over a draft pick.
Right.
First round draft pick, that is. Yeah.
Right. And that's why they could make the Tatar trade too. I mean, things like that they had made these. They were silly with these things. And the tough thing with them, I think, is going to be, do you want this balance of your salary cap and balancing their salary cap? Well, first of all, with having this much success, it makes it very hard right off the bat. And but you would never turn it away. But it's just it makes it hard. You'd see teams. It's going to be hard to keep players. It's going to be very hard to keep people. And Winnipeg's going to have a whole lot of trouble keeping players. But you look at this, and the way you usually want to have a certain amount of guys on entry level that are going to be impact players, a certain guy, older players, and they've got all this. And now I think one of the reasons they trade away these draft picks is they have so many young players that they're going to have a tough time balancing that out over time.
Well, it's just amazing right now. If you look at the salary structure, nobody is making above $6 million. You have like Marc Andre at 5.7, Russ Smith, Marchessault at 5. I think Neal's at 5 too. So just down the line, and that won't last. McPhee has acknowledged that. Yeah, it's pretty perfect now, but it won't last. And there's going to be some changes, and they'll just have to deal with changes when they come.
So this is the question that people talk about a lot, and you're the best person to talk about this. Is okay? So Seattle's coming into the league, and and everyone's saying, "Oh, it's not fair. That they're going to have the same rules, but there's not fair. There's no way they'll be able to duplicate what's happened here." Do you think that's true?
I think that GMs will probably be a little more careful about overprotecting their own players and giving up draft picks and things of that nature. So there will be a little bit less of that. It's possible. It's possible for Seattle to replicate the success, but I wouldn't count on it though, because this was special what they did, and a lot of these circumstances, like William Karlsson going from a 6 goal scorer to 43 goal scorer, that's not normal.
No, it's not.
And that's not something for Seattle to count on. Seattle should count on maybe being competitive and maybe making the playoffs. That won't surprise anybody, but this kind of run is special.
GMs are going to wise up to this, because I mean they're not going to give extra first round picks to protect players or to dump players.
That's not what's hurt them, Mike. I mean, like, it's not the extra first round picks haven't hurt them. I mean, that's not anything right now.
But I'm saying that's going to perpetuate the success of this franchise. I mean, they hit home runs with their first round picks. Ask Russ, Glass, Brandstrom. These are good picks.
No, we'll perpetuate them. But I think that what we're looking at right now is not a result.
Well, no, but in other situations,
protect. That's where.
Well, in some cases, teams won't give up players. Like Minnesota gave up Howell and Tuck to Dumba, and that in this case, maybe Minnesota would rather have kept Dumba, and maybe Vegas. And Dumba's an incredible player, by the way, but maybe Vegas would have been worse if they had Dumba instead of Howell and Tuck.
Yeah, and I think the key is really being able to look at players that are going to do better given more responsibility, right? That's what's happened. Like Karlsson, Howell was always a fun player to watch in Minnesota. Like he was one of the more exciting players on that team. You would watch them and you would wait for his shifts. You
guys don't see me, do you? Or you do?
Hey, Russ.
Because I was talking a minute ago. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, we didn't hear you then, but no, it's good.
And I can tell you, Brandstrom and everybody they've drafted first 3 rounds were really good for them. So a lot of people were missing the boat on that too. I felt like yesterday I had to not only defend Vegas for being good, but also saying, if you think they're a one-trick pony, they might need to reload, but they've got guys in 2 years that will be terrific. And they had a draft last year. Yeah. So this is a completely unusual situation.
And and like I said, they have a boatload of cap space, and we can see what McPhee has done, in terms of his decision-making process with the expansion draft and with some of the other moves that, he can take advantage of it. Now, Sheng, I know you have to go. So, I mean, do you sense any favoritism on who Vegas wants to play, who they want to see win Game 7 in the other series?
I would think, I haven't sensed any favoritism from the organization, but I would think that they want to play Washington, not for the ready-made NBC storylines, but because Tampa Bay is still deeper than Washington.
Yes.
But I think either way, though, I think they may have beat the best team that they're going to face. I'm not sure, but I have a lot of respect for Winnipeg, even though Winnipeg didn't play their best.
Narrative, Shane, but I disagree with that. But that's playing into narrative, so he'll be happy with that.
No, that's playing into that's what I believe. As I was saying, I believed all the time. I thought all the time that Nashville and Winnipeg were the two best teams in the playoffs, and that but that I also thought that Vegas was playing at a playoff pace all year and wouldn't be able to step up to another level when other teams did. I was wrong there, but yeah, I agree with you on the Tampa thing. I think that because the toughest thing for me when you're playing a goalie like Marc-Andre Fleury, who is so good in close, and Washington likes to crash the net and score goals that way more. Where Tampa has the more sharpshooters, and the sharpshooters are really how you're getting. That's why Scheifele had some success. That's why Laine could have had a little bit of success. But when you have Kucherov and Stamkos, you've got two serious sharpshooters.
Yeah, move the goalie from side to side.
Yeah,
but they're still living off the power play, Tampa. That's the only thing that would worry me about.
That's true.
Them.
That's true. And they don't take many penalties. Well, thanks, Sheng, so much. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. I probably will. I guess I'll see you in Vegas too. Actually.
Yeah. I'll see you down
Thank
there.
you.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it.
Talk to you guys later.
And he is at Sheng Peng on
Sheng_Peng on Twitter.
Peng on Twitter.
He's a good follow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't get situations like that very often. So thank you so much for coming in anytime. Let me get you out of here. There you go. Cool. So that was good. It was good. Sheng's a good interview. It was nice to have him. It's just such a crazy story. I mean, I ran into him last year. Literally, the first time I met him was during the Stanley Cup Finals in Nashville. He was there covering for something, covering for another. And he said, "Yeah, let's." And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be your Vegas writer." I'm like, "Oh yeah, how you doing?" Just because he had emailed me out of the blue, and I'm like, "Yeah, no one else wanted to do it. He had some experience. He wanted to move to Vegas, so it's crazy." Crazy. All right, let's get into last night's game, Mike.
You should open this up, Mike, definitely, because you were right.
I said there was a possibility that Washington would.
No, you said Washington was going to win 100%, and then you said that they were going to win the series.
I did not say that. I picked Tampa. Tampa's going to win the series. I'm very confident of that. But Washington, their backs were against the wall. And Holtby played well, and I think Vasilevsky I don't think was responsible for the loss for Tampa. That was the one. I think he played pretty good. It was a tight game. Power play goal by Oshie, and then Devontae Smith-Pelly with that goal, and that was sort of a defensive breakdown by Tampa. But it was an almost impossible shot for Vasilevsky to stop. I mean, there was desperation there. And I don't know, psychologically, it's like when you're up 3-2, I would think you want to put it away. You don't want to go to game 7. But when you're at home and the team had not won at home yet, there was a lot of motivation there on the part of the Capitals. So, and as Russ pointed out during our text back and forth, Backstrom actually did contribute. And that was them. That was something that didn't happen in those games after he came back. He won faceoffs, like you said, but offensively he's been nothing. And now yesterday he gets the assist on the Oshie goal, and obviously Tampa didn't score a goal, so that was the game winner. So they're going to need that in game 7. And I think I still, obviously, home ice advantage doesn't really mean anything in any of these playoff series. I just still think Tampa is the better team. So I picked Tampa. So I'm going to stick with Tampa.
I got to tell you. So not only do I disagree a little bit, I disagree 100%, because not only did I think that Washington would win last night, but I think Washington proved something last night. They finally got the monkey off their back at home. Holtby not only played well, I mean, he shut him out. Anytime you got a shutout in these playoffs, I don't care how many shots on goal there are, he was great. He was locked in. But the biggest thing was with Wilson and Devontae Smith-Pelly, they destroyed Tampa. Dan Girardi, I'm not sure what kind of shape he's going to be in for this next game. Ryan McDonough, if he wasn't blocking shots, was having to sort of defend himself and his half of his team.
Yep.
He's black and blue. Like that Tampa blue line now is sufficiently beat up to the point where I think Washington has an edge here, and I think Washington feels really good about what's going on.
And then Steven,
matters.
And then Steven Stamkos wasted JT Miller in the third period on an accidental hit. He must have thought it was the Tampa Rangers series from a couple years ago. But I take that into consideration. But but the thing is, again, Cooper will have the last change. And, maybe against those guys, when Wilson's out, maybe he has lineups like with Palat or Killorn, who are bigger guys who can handle the rougher going, instead of having, Kucherov or the smaller players up against Wilson and Smith Pelly and having them running roughshod over them. So, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a matchup situation where Cooper will try to get away from those guys. But if you put them on two separate lines, which they have been, it's going to be tough to do.
I mean, Mike, are you willing to bet an order of wings?
Sure.
Right. Put an order of wings on.
There you go. Are you at the beach, Russ? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm at the beach in Woodbury, New Jersey.
Oh, it looks like the ocean behind you from me.
I know, it's my parents' apartment.
Hilarious. All right, so yeah, I felt a lot like you said, Russ. I felt like the Capitals showed their physicality that they definitely have over Tampa.
Yeah.
And finally used it. I felt like for the first time since the Columbus series, they played team defense.
Yes.
Which was also huge. Like in Columbus, they played really solid team defense. In Pittsburgh, they basically didn't have to as much because the Penguins weren't bringing, as much as. But then they really, in this series, they played half decent team defense the first two games and then got away from it completely. And the Capitals are kind of the way those players are on the Caps. They kind of are the players that have to be reminded that they have to play team defense to win in the playoffs. It felt like,
it's true.
It really felt like, because once they start winning, they're just going to try to score all the time. And
plus, final hit number for Ovechkin, he was over 20, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And when Ovechkin plays physical, he's a really good hitter. People don't realize how good of a checker Ovechkin is.
Oh yeah, he's a real good hitter, especially from behind.
Listen, he is, but again, whether it is from behind or not, you don't want to get hit by that.
He levels people. Like
he's a freight train.
Probably the hardest hitting. If you were to compare like the strength of hit versus scoring abilities in the history of the NHL, Ovechkin's right up there.
He's the Trans-Siberian Railway. That's what he is.
It's like Gordie Howe-ish. He's got the Gordie Howe thing going on with that. He can kill people.
The hitting in this game reminded me of the Tampa Calgary Cup. That's how good the hitting was in this game.
Yeah, and it was why it was such a good game too, and really kind of the hitting you expect more of in the playoffs than we've gotten.
But ironically, and since we had Shang on the show, this is playing right into the hands of Vegas.
It is. It totally
Vegas is getting a week off. These teams are beating the crap out of each other. Game 7 will be they'll completely waste each other. And the schedule came out, and the Cup final starts next Monday. So they're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 days at most of rest. One of those days will be travel. So it's these teams are going to be at a disadvantage, even though they may both of them may have more talent than Vegas.
Yeah.
It plays into Vegas's hands that these teams go to a 7th game and probably will destroy each other in Game 7.
Although Vegas on layoffs has looked rusty, we've seen that.
Yeah, Game 1, exactly. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, that you can see
consider there, but as far as these two teams, though, the goaltending is pretty much even, I think, at this point. I think a lot of things are even. I think the one thing, though, that I'm giving the Capitals the edge on is I do think now that Barry Trotz pretty much made it public that he's not coming back, I do feel like the team will go to greater lengths now to win this cup for him. And I felt it in that game. I don't know if it's true. Nobody's going to admit it.
Right.
But I felt that. And I also felt like Washington's role players are they're playing so much better for Washington than the Kunitzes and the role players for Tampa. And I think that's been a big key. That was a big key.
And it's ironic because it's the worst it's the worst kept or second worst kept secret. The worst being Lou Lamoriello going to the Islanders, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But now the talk is that Trotz, as soon as this series or as soon as his run with the Caps is over with, he's probably going to unseat Bruce Boudreau in Minnesota because Paul Fenton is the GM, and that's
hear that before.
Well, yes, no, somewhere.
Do you remember that? I mean, I mean, I know because I was hearing the same thing. I mean, and back then, it's that makes tons of sense.
I was like,
remember
Trotz's that, but if they're going to do it,
Trotz's connection to to Craig Leopold is big. I mean, that he was a coach for the Predators for a very long time there. That's a big thing.
And believe me, Bruce Boudreau will not be unemployed long.
No.
He'll be back at the Caps.
I think,
but I doubt it.
I think the next coach of the Caps will probably be Reardon, Todd Reardon.
He won't.
Yeah, you're probably right. No, but Boudreau could end up in New York.
No, Quinn signed 5-year deal.
Yeah, David Quinn is the new coach. That's at least
that's a done deal.
Okay, yeah, I didn't actually miss that one. Sorry. Yeah, I was trying. So yeah, I know this is
But he's still going to unseat somebody. There could be another team out there that's not thrilled with their coach that either says, Bruce, just hang tight, and maybe at some point in the season he gets a job.
Yeah, I mean he'll be under, or at least he'll be getting paid off of the Minnesota deal if he does get fired.
Right.
You'll have plenty of chances to work. I mean,
and he probably could do TV work in Canada until he.
If I was Edmonton, that's where I go. If Boudreau becomes available and I'm Edmonton, that's what I do. I really think that he's the right guy for that team as far as the kind of players they have, the situation.
I think it would be a good fit.
It would be a good fit, but and we'll talk about this later because it has nothing to do with the news of the day. But the stuff that's coming out of Edmonton in terms of rumors, in terms of what they might be doing, is just proof positive that Chiarelli and McClellan are in short-term desperation mode, and if they do the things that are rumored out there, that if they don't work, they'll be on the unemployment line by December.
Here's the other thing about Edmonton, and the weird thing about Edmonton that because since I'm a rumor person and that's what I look for all the time, there's a whole different culture in Edmonton than there is in any other city, and the reason that is because for some reason I don't understand this. I've never understood this. The people who every team has a certain amount of like guys who buy the super boxes and the suites and stuff like that, who are the rich guys of the town, and the oil mongers in Edmonton, the people who make a lot of money out there on oil and have a ton of money. The Oilers team holds meetings with those guys, and their management, and we'll talk to them about things that they're going to do. And I've talked to a few of them. I've talked to different people here and there. And it's funny because you'll get stuff that is usually pretty close to being true, and it'll come to fruition. Oftentimes you can't talk about it because the guys are sworn to secrecy, but it gives you huge hints towards where they're going. Because, and this is when you start seeing weird things coming out of Edmonton, in the rumor mill, I feel like that's part of it.
The weird thing. The last thing I'll just say about Edmonton before we go on to more exciting stuff. They could still make the playoffs next year if they do things right, or they could completely miss again, and it wouldn't shock anybody.
Right.
Yeah. No, they're right on. They are a bubble, and but they could. I mean, they could win the division. Like a lot of people thought they would this year.
They could.
They could, but the thing is that they have young players who are talented, who, if they're patient, could really turn out to be good players. I mean, if they've like lost patience with Puljujarvi or something like that. I mean, I think he still can be a good player, but if they have
he's the big key to all of this. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. But no, we have to shift to the never-ending story of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, thank God we're not going to be talking too much more about their assistant.
There's two stories there, so
right. There's two stories. First of all, again, the worst kept secret was Lou going to the Islanders, and now it's confirmed that at least the title is, I believe it's president of hockey operations, which I wonder, and this will be the story to come is, what does that mean for Garth Snow? Does that mean that he's just relegated to some corner office and he'll be sorting out paper clips for the next 4 years?
I think he stays in whatever office he has, Mike. I mean, I'm just saying.
But you know what I'm saying.
I believe it is a corner office, but yes, continue.
Yeah. But basically, it's like, okay, I mean, is he completely usurped of all power? I mean, he had Garth had Lamoriello's son as part of the management team there, and Lamoriello and Snow are apparently, they get along. So I'm assuming
it would be pretty cold for Lou to fire Garth after Garth gave his son a job. That would be pretty cold.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think that I think Lou will probably keep Garth in some role that will have some say, which maybe optically to the Islander fans who hate him with a passion won't be the best thing. But if they have the confidence that Lou is in control, then I think they can overcome that. But this story about Tavares that we just touched on yesterday, the fact that Lou met him last Wednesday, when essentially, I mean, we didn't now. If the Leafs had no problem with it, if the Leafs said, if you want to go, you can go, and they signed off and it's not tampering. I mean, Lou apparently talked to Tavares face-to-face last Wednesday and was representing the Islanders. So that means for over a week, he was not a part of the Leafs.
I think we're taking this all too literally, but if you ask me, I think Lou is a Swiss chalet guy and probably wanted to save a few bucks. And so he probably met Tavares there, and they had a nice meal, and they talked about whatever we think they talked about that you're not talk about, and that's what happened.
Russ, did they get the brisket or the chicken?
The chicken. I've had the chicken there. It's good.
And Jared Kushner was there, but doesn't remember how long. I don't. It is a weird situation, but my guess is that Tampa, that Toronto signed off on it. That Toronto said fine. Toronto, and I don't think because the one thing that's interesting about Burke and Lou, those two guys particularly, is they are incredibly aware of the collusion stuff. Like that's something that they really are terrified about, probably because they're like right on the edge of it a lot. So they're always aware of it. So, but
it's weird. It's weird, Ack, because I mean the Burke administration in Toronto is not so in the not so distant past, and that organization was an open door where everything that they talked about got out.
Right.
Whereas Lou's was like the CIA. Well,
which is what you saw here, because
you're talking about the CIA during the Obama administration.
But which is what we're talking about here, though, is basically that they were locked down, and the fact that Lou met with Tavares,
right,
a while ago, and no one knows about it till now.
Now, I'm of the opinion that it's not going to. I mean, maybe it improves the chances microscopically, but I don't think it improves the chances so great that all of a sudden Tavares is going to Lou's here, I'm going to sign an 8-year deal.
No, I think it does more than that. I think it does a lot more than that. I mean, I know.
I think it improves. I don't think it's gonna. It's a determining factor.
I will tell you this. I don't think it's a big determining factor. It's definitely a factor, but I will tell you now that Lou's there, I think there's almost no chance that Tavares signing with the Rangers, because I think he would definitely talk him out of that.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's
if you want to go to the West Coast, if you want to go to Vegas, you want to go to San Jose, fine. That's. I mean,
Tavares' name came up today with Nashville to me.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Nashville's shedding that salary.
And
you know what that means, Zach. That means that if they're in on Tavares, they're trading tourists, because obviously they would have to clear that salary to be able.
They would definitely be trading tourists. But they would have to trade a lot more than that probably. So it would be interesting to see how they play it out.
Because someone like, I don't know if Fiala's deal's up yet. They probably have a guy or two that deals are up too.
Well, Rennie's 1 year away, right? Rennie's 1 year away, so you can actually
going to get a deal.
Yeah, but
Fiala is up after next year.
Okay.
They're
pretty signed in. I mean, they have their team.
There's no way Rennie's getting an extension unless he wins something.
Right. So that money is available.
They have to take care. They have to take care of Ellis. Ellis is $2.5 million for 1 more year. Okay. And then he's a UFA, and Yossi is $4 million for 2 more years, and then he's a UFA. So I think that was the genesis of all the speculation about Subban. It's like, okay, you're going to need money to lock up those 2 defensemen because they're important, and maybe, but I don't think that's realistic that they're going to trade Subban. But anyway, getting back to Toronto, the news of the day today that broke, and this is the thing. It's been rumored for a while.
It was tweeted, Mike. This is the funny thing about it. When did the Toronto Maple Leafs ever tweet official news?
Well, they for the last year or so, or at least the last couple of years, their PR staff will email and tweet at the same time.
Well, they tweet that they've parted ways with someone. I've never seen that kind of tweet from them.
No. I mean, any significant news? This is a significant move. I mean, because Hunter has been an important part of the organization the last 4 years. I mean, he's directly responsible for their scouting and their amateur scouting, and he's an assistant general manager.
How many people do you think approved that tweet before the send button gets hit?
1, Brendan Shanahan. Yeah, I mean, and Kyle Dubas. Yeah, I'm sure.
I think too.
Yeah. So, but I mean, this was expected. Now, the interesting thing is there was, and Russ and I, again, were talking about this.
Yeah.
Hunter was apparently willing to continue through the draft, as to handle the draft. But the Leafs basically said, okay, if you're not going to stay with the organization, we'll take it from here. But they have he had a year left in his contract, and basically has a non-compete clause, so he can't talk to another organization. He can't join another organization until, I believe, the middle of July. So that means the draft is in Kyle Dubas and their remaining scouting staff here, and the upheaval that's going to happen after this. Remember, Hunter brought in a lot of scouts, so there's probably going to be a complete changeover of a part, or at least part of their scouting staff. Although maybe some of them will stay, who you never know. But this is a dramatic change of the Leaf management structure within the span of a couple weeks.
This will be the most examined draft that they've had in a very long time, because
Right.
We don't know who the lead voice will be at the table other than Dubas.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about not having Hunter there, is if you have to make changes on the list or the board on the fly, who's really going to do that? Like, that's the thing. Mark Hunter was a master at that.
Right.
That's where they're going to miss something. So look, this draft, we won't know for 5 years how well it's going to go. But I have to tell you, it is changing dramatically. And that, if I were a Leafs fan, I would definitely be worried.
And my supposition regarding that is, I think that, not that I don't think Kyle Dubas is prepared to draft a pick in the first round, but I think that where this franchise is right now, that it increases, and with Hunter moving out, it increases the possibility of them using the 25th pick that they have. And they've traded picks lower in the first round before for Freddie Anderson and to accumulate more picks in the 2015 draft. I think it increases the chances of them trading the 25th pick along with another player or a package to get an impact player from another team. I think there's a really good possibility of that, and we'll see you next month at the draft.
Yeah, that draft will be fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see who's sitting at the table. There could be someone slid in at the last minute as like a consultant, Mike. I mean, that's something. Yeah. If maybe Kyle Dubas invites someone to the draft, right, as a consultant. And
there's
don't know about it until draft day. That's possible,
right?
By the way, you can hire Russ at by calling.
And he'll hire me as his assistant.
Yeah, but if you're looking for somebody, I mean, who else would you bring on? It's like, if you got to bring on somebody.
Well, there's a few names out there. One of the names that's been tied to Kyle Dubas in terms of bringing in, now with Hunter and Lamoriello out, he's probably going to be looking for somebody with some hockey experience to be at least a sounding board. And, somebody is, the name of Ron Francis has been out there, and he has a connection to him through his affiliation with the Sioux Greyhounds. We know Francis got jobbed in Carolina by Dundon. So, I mean, I think he's a good hockey man. The name of Chuck Fletcher has been mentioned a couple times. I think they'll bring somebody in, but I also think that what Dubas, because remember, they've got to fill 3 spots here: director of amateur scouting, assistant general manager, 2 assistant general manager spots, because Dubas vacated one and Hunter vacates the other, and Hunter was handling scouting. So they have to add 3 positions, and I think it'll be split up amongst 3 different people.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. We will see how this plays out, but it is surprising. Where Hunter will end up. We'll find out too. That's another thing we don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know whether Hunter is going to end up as. Oh, we lost Russ there for a second.
I mean, he could go to the Islanders, but that's not a definitive thing. Anything?
Yeah, no, it's not. Nothing is definitive. But I think that.
I wish I knew more about the relationship that Lamoriello has with Hunter. I don't really know. I don't know anything about that as far as.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Well, I mean, before the Leafs, there was none, but apparently they worked very well together. And I mean, it's a question with the Islanders of whether how much control does Lamoriello have? I mean, if Lamoriello has complete and utter control of hockey operations, then it's very possible that he brings Mark Hunter in. But, Mark Hunter, I think, has aspirations of being a general manager in this league, not an assistant. So, he may be content to go back to the London Knights for a year and manage that team, and then go, and when there's an opening in the league next year, to jump at that opportunity. But we don't know.
Well, let's move on to David Quinn, okay? Because that is major thing that I didn't even know was happening today, because I was at the zoo with my child this morning. So David Quinn, the Boston University coach, the new coach of the New York Rangers. This is the second college coach. Obviously, Dave Hackstall came in from North Dakota a couple years ago, and this is the second. So this is another wave of college coaches, maybe in the NHL.
Well, the second this offseason, because Montgomery got
Montgomery as well. So third. Okay, so third altogether in the last couple of years.
Correct.
What are your thoughts, Russ, on Dave Quinn?
Well, I think he's probably their third choice. When it was clear that Reardon wasn't going to be available, I think that's why they made this jump. It also tells you that for whatever reason, Barry Trotz wasn't going to be a choice, or they would have waited, right? So. Yeah. That's fine. I think I had no problem with the choice. I mean, again, everybody knows I tweeted it out. I thought Jim Montgomery was the best choice, and Dallas got the best guy in my opinion. But I still think the Rangers got somebody good. They gave him 5 years because they want him. He wants to build a culture there, and apparently didn't have enough time to even do that at BU. Because look, I felt like they should have made the Frozen Four this year. They had amazing talent, right? They had Brady Tkachuk, they had Shane Barras, they had Jake Ottinger. They still didn't make it. That's a little thing that I'm going to hang on there. But again, he didn't really have enough time to really build the program back up either. Although look, BU gets plenty of players, right? They're never lacking in players. So I think this is a position where he's going to get eased into it. I don't think the Rangers have any playoff aspirations this coming season. I don't think they'll go after Tavares now, or Tavares won't even want them. And I think they'll be in this retooling mode still. And that's a good thing for him, because then he can look at this team, decide who he likes, who he doesn't like, play a lot of youngsters. He's going to have to play a lot of youth on defense. Defense is the sore spot there. And then see what he's got. I mean, the one thing that I didn't mention with Sheng, I mean, down the road when Seattle comes in, they might be picking from like Henrik Lundqvist in his last year in the NHL. Like that could be the way it goes for the Rangers at that point. But right now, Lundqvist won't want to lose. They will try and play to their best of their ability. I think their defense will be the biggest thing they have to overcome, and that's probably why they won't be a playoff team.
Do we have to revise the thought that the Rangers will be in on Kovalchuk now with this?
Well, that's my blog today. My blog today was that, basically along those lines. But we'll talk about that after Quinn.
About the Rangers, that will never change. They charge a lot for seats. They always want big names there. They want some big names on their media guide. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to because again, a lot of their tickets are not season tickets anymore. They're like people out for the night, out on the town. Right. They know the name of Kovalchuk. He will get an offer from the Rangers. Whether he accepts it or not, that's up to him. But I'm pretty sure he's still going to get it, because what they're going to tell you is, look, they still have to field a team, right? They still have to try and win, especially with Lundqvist there. Yeah. So I think that doesn't change the plans for him.
Well, I also think if you write off the possibility of Tavares, you might have to also write off the possibility of Van Riemsdyk, because Van Riemsdyk was supposedly I know he's a Ranger fan, I know, but he's looking for the 7-year deal. He's looking for the big money. He's looking for like the Oshie contract or the Kyle Oposo contract, and I don't know whether that's in the bailiwick of the Rangers. It might be of Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders. I mean,
it might be, Mike, but I wouldn't count Van Riemsdyk out.
Yeah,
because if the Rangers decide that, hey, we're still going through with this, and trade someone like Matt Zuccarello at the draft, then they might sign someone like Van Riemsdyk, because they'll say, hey, in like a year or two, we're going to need an elite scorer like that. So I still wouldn't count him out, but I think they would have to move someone like Zuccarello to sort of tell me that that's the way they're going to go now.
And I think we have to watch, and I think we could make an entire show of this, of who Lou will trade in terms of for a goaltender. I can say this: they've got 2 consecutive first-round picks. I think it's 11 and 12.
Yeah.
If there's a goaltender out there that is not like a team doesn't just want to simply dump, but a young goalie or a goaltender who he could trade one of those picks for that goalie.
Hey, look,
I've heard the name I've heard mentioned is still playing right now, but is Brubauer. Like that's the name I've heard mentioned in as far as one of those picks, and because obviously we know Samsonov is coming over for Washington. Hope he has reestablished himself as the number one for sure. He really has. No matter how you slice it, he's the guy, especially after last night. I mean, I think that's the thing. What I think with what I may or may not have heard from somebody who may or may not know John Tavares was that Tavares may or may not have been told that Kovalchuk was a possibility to come to the Islanders. And I would not be surprised. That would not shock me at all. Like
I mean, we talked about it.
And I think there's more to it than even speculation. Honestly, I think there's something to that one.
They need a building. Like I still think those are obstacles. But again, as far as what happens with the Rangers, I think end of the day, look, they've got a couple of draft picks in the first round. That's good. They're not going to trade those. Would they try and move up in the draft? Yeah, I think the Rangers could be one of those teams that do try and move up in the draft. That could be beneficial. Maybe they could eyeball someone like a Joel Farabee as an example, because when you start looking at the Rangers and break them down long term, even a Buchnevich, even Zibanejad, while they're all nice players, they're still going to need a really high-end goal scorer. At the end of the day, they are going to need one. And Kovalchuk, even if he's there, is only going to be there for a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to try and have to draft a guy like that. And, so that's going to be the big thing there.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. You're dead on with that. It will be fun. So no games tonight. So just enjoy your family this evening, wherever you are. Enjoy your family. Yeah, go out with your family. Go for a walk in the park with somebody. Enjoy your time.
360-something other days of the year to worry about that. Come on, man.
No, this is the night. You got to gear up because you got the Stanley Cup Finals on Monday. Eventually, it's gonna be a long break. It's gonna be a long break. I mean, it's a lot of momentum lost between Wednesday and Monday.
Is it really building availability? Because I don't know for sure that it is.
I have a feeling for whatever reason they wanted to stay away from Memorial Day weekend because
it's head to head against the NBA. That's why.
Maybe that's it.
I really think that's what it is. Remember, the NBA they last week they played they played Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, and then the next game it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they didn't play the next games until Saturday, Sunday. The NHL for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final does not want to go head up against Game 6 of Boston, Cleveland, or a Golden State, Houston. I'll bet you anything.
Like the Monday, Wednesday, Saturday thing like they've done before. Is that what they're going to do?
No, the breaks than that. If you look at the schedule, I think there's one point where there's 3 days off in between.
Yeah, I have the schedule here. I can pull it up quickly.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of travel. That schedule's. I mean, distance-wise, but it's only a difference between like another hour in a plane. It's not like the end of the world.
No, but the problem is, like I said, at least for someone like me, the combine is overlapping. They will have a Stanley Cup game again on the most important day of the combine.
Yeah, no, that the combine, that year, that really does this thing.
Here's the schedule. It's Monday the 28th, Game 1, Wednesday the 30th, Game 2, Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so there's a 2-day break between Game 4 for travel, 2-day break between Game 4 and 5. A 2-day break between Game 5 and 6, and a 2-day break between Game 6 and 7. So they're stretching it out.
And that really is stretching it out. All right, guys. That's all the time we have for today. Remember that the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.